Yes, you clicked on the right video. This is about ETFs that pay dividends every single month, and you're right, it's not SPHD. Most people have never even heard of monthly dividend ETFs, which is honestly crazy when you think about it. Here's what happened to me last month. I'm checking my brokerage account and boom, dividend payment. 3 days later, another one. A week after that, another one. My friend sees this and goes, "Dude, what's wrong with your account? Why are you getting paid so much?" See, most people think dividends work like this. You invest in something like SPHD or VOO. And every 3 months, if you're lucky, you get a little payment. But what if I told you there are ETFs out there paying you every single month, like clockwork? Not quarterly, not 2 times a year, every single month. And here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. One of the 4 ETFs I'm about to show you doesn't just pay monthly. When you run the numbers long term, it completely destroys what most people consider good dividend investing. We're talking about turning your investment into a legitimate monthly income stream that could replace your job. Now, I know what you're thinking. Higher yield usually means higher risk, right? Sometimes. But today, I'm breaking down 4 monthly dividend ETFs that have proven themselves in the real world. I'll show you their exact strategies, their track records, how much they're actually paying per month, and most importantly, which one stands above the rest. Because here's the deal. 3 of these are solid, but one of them, it's the kind of ETF that when you invest just $10 a day, the cost of lunch, over the long haul, the numbers will shock you. I'll show you exactly what I mean later in this video. So let's start with the most conservative ETF, SPHD. The Invesco S&P 500 High Dividend Low Volatility ETF is basically the steady Eddie of monthly dividend investing. Here's how it works. It takes the S&P 500, all those big familiar companies, and screens for 2 things: higher than average dividend yields and lower than average volatility. So you're getting the stability of massive American businesses, but specifically the ones that pay well and don't bounce around too much. What's inside? About 25% real estate companies like Alexandria Real Estate and Health Peak Properties. Another 17% consumer staples, companies like Conagra and Altria that sell stuff people need regardless of the economy. Then you've got utilities, financials, and healthcare filling out the rest. SPHD pays about 4.5% annually. So if you invest $10,000, you're getting $450 per year in dividends, which breaks down to roughly $37 per month. The expense ratio is 0.30%, so you're barely paying anything in fees. Over the long haul, this thing has averaged somewhere between 8 to 11% annual returns. If you put $10,000 into SPHD today, in 10 years, you'd be looking at around $21,500 in total value, generating about $968 per year in dividends, or $80 per month. In 30 years, over $100,000 total, paying you around $4,500 per year, or $375 per month. Not bad for the conservative choice, but this is just the appetizer compared to what's coming. Next up is DIVO, and this is where things get clever. The Amplify CWP Enhanced Dividend Income ETF uses what I like to call the own the house, rent the driveway strategy. They buy quality dividend-paying stocks, but then they write covered call options on a portion of the portfolio. Think of it like this. You own a rental property. You're collecting rent every month, but you also rent out the driveway for extra cash. That's essentially what covered calls do. They generate additional income on top of the dividends. DIVO pays about 4.6% annually, so around $460 per year, or $38 per month on a $10,000 investment. The expense ratio is higher at 0.55%, but that's because this strategy requires more active management. The historical returns that we're looking at are somewhere between 11 to 13% annually, which means your $10,000 could grow to about $28,000 in 10 years, generating generating around $1,288 per year in dividends, or $107 per month, over 30 years. Potentially $229,000 total value, paying you about $10,500 to $34 per year, or $877 per month. That covered call strategy is impressive, but wait until you see the approach that completely changes the game. The third ETF on our list pays nearly 3 times more in current income than anything we've talked about so far. SPYI is yielding about 12% annually. That's $1,200 per year, or $100 per month from a $10,000 investment. 12%? Let that sink in for a second. The NEOS S and P 500 high-income ETF tracks. The S and P 500 butt layers on a sophisticated option overlay strategy. It's designed to maximize income from large cap exposure while keeping things tax efficient. This isn't some risky penny stock strategy. We're talking about the same big companies you'd find in a regular S&P 500 fund, just structured to generate way more income. The expense ratio is 0.68%, which is higher than the others, but when you're pulling in 12% yield, that extra cost often pays for itself. Since its inception, this thing has delivered about 14.6% annualized returns. Your $10,000 could potentially grow to around $31,000 in 10 years, generating about $3,720 per year in dividends, or $310 per month. Over 3 decades. $300,000 total value, paying you around $36,000 per year, or $3,000 per month. You might think 12% is the ceiling, but I'm about to show you something that will completely blow your mind. Now, you might be thinking, this has to be the winner, right? 12% yield, strong returns, what else could you want? Well, here's the thing about investing that most people get wrong. The highest current yield doesn't always equal the most money in your pocket long term. Sometimes the magic happens when you find the perfect balance between yield, growth, and sustainability. And that brings us to the fourth ETF, JEPI, the JP Morgan Equity Premium Income. ETF takes a different approach entirely. Instead of just cranking up the yield, they focus on creating a sustainable income stream that can actually grow over time. They invest in large cap US stocks and use equity-linked notes, which is basically a more sophisticated tax-efficient version of covered calls. JEPI yields about 8.4% annually, so you're looking at $840 per year, or roughly $70 per month from a $10,000 investment. The expense ratio is just 0.35%, which is incredibly reasonable for what you're getting. But here's where it gets interesting. Over the past 5 years, JEPI's dividends have grown by 43.7%. That's not just income, that's growing income. The historical performance shows about 11% annualized returns, which means your $10,000 could grow to around $27,000 in 10 years, generating about $2,268 per year in dividends, or $189 per month. Over 30 years. $200,000 total value, paying you around $16,800 per year, or $1,400 per month. But here's where JEPI gets absolutely insane. Remember that $10 per day I mentioned earlier? Here's what happens when you consistently invest just $10 a day, $300 per month, into JEPI and let those monthly dividends reinvest and compound at roughly 10.5% annually. After 30 years, you're not looking at $200,000. You're looking at approximately $755,000, $755,000 from $10 a day. And here's the kicker. At JEPI's 8.4% yield, that $755,000 portfolio would be generating around $5,300 per month in dividend income. $5,300 every single month. That's more than most people's salaries. Each of these ETFs has its strengths. So which one wins? Now you can see why it's JEPI. While SPYI gives you that massive 12% upfront yield, and the others have their strengths, JEPI balances current income with long-term compound growth in a way that actually builds more wealth over time. SPYI might give you $3,000 per month after 30 years, but JEPI gives you $5,300. That tax-efficient structure, that dividend growth track record, that perfect balance of yield and appreciation, it all compounds into something extraordinary. This is why I keep coming back to JEPI. It's not just about the monthly payments, though getting $70 per month from every $10,000 is pretty sweet. It's about what those payments can become when you give them time to work. If this opened your eyes to what's possible with monthly dividend ETFs, smash that like button. It helps more people discover these strategies. Subscribe for more videos on dividend investing.